Abusua mamu bibi akwaba na memfa abra Mega TV and platform we eso. Nyankopon koso a ehira papa eni abibia mo support awde mai na mebeme yakọ akọhwe discussion bi a ekoso. Yewura Uncle Kwesi Pratt Junior what you say eni Suhini I think say ono nso MP a clash ewo good morning Ghana show so Metro TV na abusia na eyoja de ekoso ewo parliament de ekoso ewo parliament ohwe how ene agudi a ekoso wo parliament a too much Ghana parliament pani too much do adaho honorable Joe Ajahu ne parliament pani yamene yobuafo yɛbɔ mpaeɛ sɛ NDC ebetimi adi ɔmo bɔhyɛ so na ɔmo atimi awɔke hard nti saa deɛ a deɛ ɛda anim no ɛso abusua ne nyinaa ɛyɛ nsɛnsɛm a vetting committee ɛne how a MPP foɔ aplane abusua MPP foɔ how ɔmo aplane sɛ ɔmo ma aban wei ɛnyɛ successful. They will distract it. Na mekoba enro man bi secret bi. Owura bi yi secret bi. Asanita no what you say. Ene sa video no ena me post no ene day first. Into person ko hwa kona koti ko hwa sa video no. Owura bi e posti ade bi. Nsem bi o kan ye. Ene nneema bi o review ye no. Ye nkombra. Ebie na unyanti ye koba mekyerɛkyerɛ mu. Yenko video no embra yemfa credit no ma Metro TV Good Morning Ghana show so what you see ena saa nima wi etimi ekoso abusua message so do comment betum na wa like dwumadi na wa share na foforo nya bia subscribe for latest update yenko na yenko ti nsem no quick one emfa bre ko ba bidina kai na ebeto aso e yem platform wi eso yenko pon shiraw
Metro Television. And at this juncture, I'll be introducing my resource persons who have joined us this morning to help us look at the big stories in the newspapers. And joining us this morning is the managing editor of the Insight newspaper. I'm talking about Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr., who has joined us this morning. Uncle Kwesi, good morning. It's good to have you join us this morning. And then also the man who I'm sure you haven't heard from in a while after he successfully won his contest to become a member of parliament for the people of Wale Wale. He hasn't been here in a while. He went AWOL, but he's back. I'm talking about Dr. Tia Abdul Kabiru Mahama, who is also a former technical advisor. I hope I got that correctly. At some point, he was a technical advisor to His Excellency Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who was the presidential candidate of the New Patriotic Party. So I'll be seeking to get him to set the record straight as to exactly whether he's still a technical advisor to the former vice president and also the presidential candidate of the New Patriotic Party. Doc, Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, good to be back.
How are you?
It's been a long while. I think
you dog are small, oh.
Don't be me dog you. With the pressure.
What crime did you commit?
With the pressure where you turn me away. You know,
the pressure sack you small.
Yeah, and the heat. I've not actually been around since the court ruling on the election petition that was sent by my predecessor.
Okay.
And after the ruling, we had a virtual 2 months to campaign.
True.
And to win the seat. So I had to permanently relocate to Wale Wale.
Yeah.
First and foremost, ensure that we secure the seat. And once we secure the seat, I can now come back to town for us to have discussion. So that was basically the reason. When I came we started the parliamentary business also. I've now had the opportunity of going to several places. There's a few of your sister stations that I have been to. So like before the elections, I was a regular feature, maybe almost every week, but once a month. But now that I've been assigned a different role, it's come with different responsibility, and I'm just trying to do that, trying to catch up with the work of Parliament, learn the rules of the House, try to participate in the work the leadership so designed and so assigned to me. So that has kept me busy.
Okay.
But that's it. I mean, once duty calls, there's the need for us to come and help in the discussion and to explain certain things to the understanding of the Ghanaian people. I think it is only well and good we take advantage of that and do.
Right.
That also said, I served as the technical economic advisor and later as his director of economic analysis, the former vice president. Of course, that position was conterminous with the tenure of the government.
Right.
So what it essentially means is that once the government was changed, or the good people had changed the government, it means that I was equally changed. So that is it. Okay. Former is a bad description.
Right.
But of course, the vice president constituency is Wale Wale.
Right.
And can be described as his chief errand boy.
Right.
In this regard. So I'm still working for him and we'll still be working together. Yeah.
There's a man who knows you very well. He's called Alhaji Nasona.
Okay.
He says I should say hello.
Alhaji Nasona is from Wale Wale.
Yes.
He's a brother and a father. I think it's just that we were not on the same side. We were not on the same side during the contest. But he's a good man.
Right.
He is loved by the people of Wale Wale. His industry has employed a lot of people, and I think that when such people are part of society, they contribute meaningfully to the development of such society, and such people, irrespective of political coloration, will have to be celebrated.
Right.
And on this occasion, I just want to celebrate the industry of Alhaji Nasona, and to urge him to keep on doing more. Many people would stand to benefit. The good people of Wale Wale will benefit. The good people of Mampuru will benefit, and Ghana at large would benefit from his industry. So, Alhaji, wherever you are, good morning, and thank you very much for the industry.
You know, during your contest, your internal contest, the parliamentary primaries, one of the things that I noticed was that at some point you sounded and looked very, very dejected, and you came across as though and it's just my observation. It was almost as if you were beginning to ask yourself whether you belong here. I'm talking about the rough and tumble of politics and all the issues that came up. You know, the court cases, the back and forth with you and Hajia Lariba. You know, in fact, at the time there was even talk about the fact that the vice president had run you under the bus. You know, he had disappointed you. You were expecting him to have been there for you, but he decided to take a more neutral position, you know, and you would have felt that as his technical advisor, he should have been able to intervene so that the matter could be taken out of court and so on and so forth. You know, how were you taking were you taking those kinds of narratives?
Yeah, so the fact is that, first and foremost, I didn't set out with the intention to go to Parliament.
Okay.
And usually it is difficult for you to explain this, especially as a politician. It's difficult for you to tell people that it wasn't my intention to come out and join the fray, as it were, fiercely so, to campaign to becoming the member of Parliament for Wale Wale. I have been in the, I was born there. My father has been one of the, before he passed on, had served the party. As a matter of fact, the stronghold of the party in the constituency is where I come from. And my father, until he passed on, was the life chairman. Dave Bejol virtually nurtured the party. And in his prime, he was a commercial farmer. He had tractor, he could use the tractor to farm for people. That attracted people to begin to love the new petrol. So he virtually built the party in that area, so making the area the stronghold of the party in the constituency. Someone from that stock, if I sit down and watch how things are run in the constituency, there's this natural anxiety that if we don't do something radical, we risk losing the seat. That was my first drive, that I have the conviction that with the way things were going, it will be very unfortunate that the vice president winning or losing 2028 election, 2024 election, and losing Wale Wale. Under no circumstances should we have the vice president losing, just like how it will be unfathomable for you to look at your mama losing Bole, because that is his backyard, that is his own cover. That will be the end of a political era. So sitting down and watching that and working for the vice president, I was convinced within myself that the right thing to do is to save the seat, irrespective of the cost. So that was the drive. So I started this process with that understanding, and I actually did not even want the vice president to get involved. Because here you are, the technical advisor, working for him closely, and the MP who happened to have family ties
with the vice president.
So it's a tricky situation.
Yeah.
So I did not even want the vice president to get involved, because either way he's going to be in a problem. To side with me means that he's throwing the sister off the bus.
Yeah.
To side with the sister means that he's throwing me off the bus, despite the fact that I also serve him and I also render some service to him. So that was a difficulty he found himself. And also he had made a public statement that he wants to stay off in all parliamentary elections. That also gave me an edge that what the vice president is saying of that means the people of Wale Wale would determine who becomes their next legislator. So that was the situation. But in the midst of this, there are people who would virtually be around power. And they use the power to create a sense that that is what the establishment so desires. And those entrepreneurs were those making things difficult, because they will go and create a picture that, look, this guy is he's acting contrary to the advice of the vice president. He's doing things, he's on the frolic of his own. That was the situation that I faced myself. And at a point in time, truly, I felt like I should not have. Because when you are trying to salvage a situation and the burden of that is on you alone to bear, it became a bit of...
it was too much to handle.
Yeah, it was too much to handle. As a person. And people... What I was left with was the support base.
Right.
People unyielding, people saying that, look, if you do not come, this seat is going to be lost.
I see.
So that was what was holding me. And I think that at the end of the day, we went to court after I had won the first round of election,
right.
But the alleged irregularities all followed. The court unfortunately ruled that we should rerun the elections.
Yeah.
I was disappointed in the ruling, and still up to today, I still have the belief that the ruling was not proportionate to the weight of the evidence.
Right.
I still, at any time, would say that the judge had not conducted the case well.
Okay.
And that belief is still there. But that said, we were able to go through the second round, another problem.
Yeah.
But NEC decided that, look, after all said and done, the MP had withdrawn, threw in the towel.
Right.
And I was the only candidate left, so I was made to lead the party. And the rest, they say, is history.
So, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
In fact, when you speak to the NDC Northeast, they were very hopeful that they would snatch the seat because they were counting on the apparent disunity within your ranks to win it, but you won it. And so I think congratulations.
I did not just win it again. I won it by margin no candidate has ever won.
That's why we're congratulating. We're
congratulating. So the NDC must be more disappointed than us.
Right. So you have now started to work as a member of parliament, and I'm sure you've been observing the back and forth, the drama that has unfolded in parliament since you have been there. Now, there was some chaos that led to the suspension of some 4 MPs, and there's some new development as far as that is concerned. So, page 13 of the Daily Graphic newspaper says, Speaker reverses suspension of 4 MPs. Drama reigns in Parliament. So, Nana Konadu Agyeman in Parliament is reporting that the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Suman Akinsford Bagbin, yesterday lifted a suspension of 4 members of Parliament after a drama-filled day of protests, lockouts from the chamber, uncompromising debate, and perhaps compelled negotiations. The Speaker stated that the reversal of the suspension took immediate effect and that all of the majority chief whip and MP for South Dai, Roxanne Nelson Dapalmakwo, the minority chief whip and the MP for Insawam Adwejiri, Frank Anodompre, the MP for Gusheu, Al Hassan Suleiman Tampoli, and the MP for Wejagbawe, Jerry Ahmed Shaibu, could return to the precincts of the House immediately. The four suffered the fate after they were considered to have been involved in disorderly conduct that amounted to contempt of Parliament during the vetting of ministerial nominees last Thursday and Friday. And even in the atmosphere of reconciliation and magnanimity, it looked unclear whether the Minister of Foreign Affairs designate Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa and the Minister of Communication designate Sam George would receive approval from the minority. The minority caucus had raised issues with the pair during the debate of the report of the Appointments Committee on the vetted nominees, with all but the two approved by consensus. Mr. Gbagbo revoked the suspension of the four after listening to appeals by the minority leader, Alexander Afenyo-Markin, as supported by the majority leader, Mahama Yariga, and said the two leaders had assured him of their total support to him and the deputy speakers to ensure that we have an efficient and effective functioning parliament in Ghana. So I'm satisfied with not just the statement, but also their conduct, and I will proceed to lift the suspension of the four members of parliament that I considered were involved in disorderly conduct, which amounted to contempt. He however told the House that a special 7-member committee he had constituted following the chaos at Appointments Committee vetting would continue with its investigations and submit its reports. The House will have the opportunity to take a position, since that is a procedure outlined by our rules, practice, convention, and customs of the House. Obviously, first of all, what do you make of this? I mean, first of all, when you heard about the suspension of the four MPs and the counter reaction that greeted it by the minority, who felt that procedurally the speaker was wrong. The speaker did not stand on any sound legal footing. There was no sound legal basis for the decision that he took. And so he needed to take a second look at that decision. But if you listen to the reason that the speaker is giving, it has nothing to do with law. It's more to do with his satisfaction of the support, unalloyed support that the two leaders of the House have given him. That's why he's decided to lift or to suspend the suspension of the four MPs. What do you make of this, Uncle?
Well, first of all, what happened in Parliament was repugnant in the extreme. I mean, listen, what happened in Parliament actually breached even boxing and wrestling rules. You understand? And we've had statements made by members of Parliament, especially from the minority side, which must be exceedingly worrying. I read yesterday an interview which was granted by Kwesi Appiah. You know, I think he's member of Parliament for Oda.
Oda, yes.
In which he actually stated that, you know, members of Parliament actually, this is morning television and it's difficult to say everything, but actually members of Parliament dived under the tables and attacked the private parts of people on the other side.
Specifically Nelson Dape-Amakpo.
Yeah. But this is not allowed, even in the boxing ring.
But Nelson said it's not true, though.
Who said?
That's what he says. Dape-Amakpo, he says it's not true. And that it's a silly joke. That's how he describes it.
Well, but that's a contention between the two of them.
Okay.
Who am I to decide who is speaking the truth?
Right.
But this matter has come up, you understand? And I have known Kwesi Appiah for a very long period of time. I mean, since his days as a reporter at Peace FM. And I think he's not given to making such silly jokes, you understand? So it's a serious matter. But even if you go beyond this, I saw the video clips in which a ranking member of Parliament is actually calling on his colleagues to turn tables. This, I mean, to a very large extent, it looked like schoolboys, you know, in a dining hall, complaining about too much pepper in the soup and so on. Absolutely regrettable. What happened in Parliament is not something that anybody can endorse. And I was shocked, you know, when I heard the minority leader say that after all, the damage which was caused was minor. How can you think like that? That the damage was minor. Should anybody destroy anything, minor or major? Unbelievable. Now, it is significant also that the only empirical evidence we have now is the survey which was conducted by Global Info Analytics. And that survey suggests that 72% of the Ghanaian people support the Speaker's action. Now, 72% is a very, very high figure. And I believe that perhaps, perhaps even more than 70% support the Speaker's action. And that's important. I mean, all these things about rules and regulations and so on, ultimately, power resides with the people. And if 72% of the people of Ghana support the Speaker's action, it is something which is worthy of note. Now, after all the brinkmanship, all the things that happened, and so on, all the press conferences and so on Monday, the minority leader sent a memorandum to the Speaker of Parliament. And paragraph 2 of that memorandum is exceedingly interesting. I'd like to read it. And it says, "At the outset, I wish to commend your strong leadership in swiftly addressing the regrettable incidents that unfolded at the Appointments Committee sitting on Thursday, the 30th of January 2025. Your commitment to preserving the dignity of Parliament and ensuring that parliamentary standards remain intact is acknowledged and deeply appreciated. Additionally, your directives regarding the damage assessment and financial accountability for any destruction of parliamentary property, as well as the referral of potential criminal conduct to the Ghana Police Service, are commendable steps towards reinforcing discipline and responsibility. These actions, which are aimed at ensuring that Parliament is held in high esteem, are in line with best practices and deserve recognition." This is Afena Maki.
Yes.
This is a minority leader. You understand? And I'm so happy that after all the rigmarole, he's finally come to the conclusion that what happened in Parliament is not just an affront to the dignity, of Parliament itself, but more or less an insult, to the people of Ghana who spend long hours queuing to vote for them to go into Parliament House. I must also say that this is not the first time that we are witnessing this reckless misbehavior in Parliament. We've seen it before, we've seen many times, I remember one incident in which a member of Parliament actually slapped the face of another member of Parliament. I remember on another occasion where a member of Parliament actually took ballot papers, chewed and swallowed them like a rat, and so on. I mean, this is not the kind of Parliament we want. And I think it's important that both sides of the House, contribute to establishing some level of decorum in Parliament. And there's supposed to be a place where laws are made. You understand? And if the people who make the laws display this wanton indiscipline, it's difficult to see how the rest of the population can accept this and live with this. Yesterday, the Speaker, after consultations with both sides of the House, and actually after this memorandum which was submitted by the minority leader, decided, that the suspension of the 4 members of Parliament be lifted. Well, I think it's important for Parliament to work, and any concessions and so on which can be made in order to ensure that Parliament works, I think it's in the right direction. However, I must point out very clearly, that deliberate attempts to disrupt parliamentary work does not sit well with democratic practice. Ultimately, decisions are going to be made in Parliament, by voting, ultimately. And if at any time that part of Parliament realize that they are not going to carry the vote, they resort to secondary school indiscipline tactics and so on, then we cannot have Parliament functioning, correctly in the broader interest of all of us as Ghanaian people. I wish that these matters would be resolved nicely. And one of the issues which needs to be resolved very quickly is who pays for the damaged property, minor or major. And I think I can say with certainty that the people of Ghana expect the irresponsible parliamentarians who actually destroyed public property to pay for them.
The Speaker has already directed that should happen anyway. He's done that as part of the consequential orders that he gave after the incident. Yeah.
So these are my submissions.
Right, but I'll just speak your thoughts briefly on this before I go to Dr. Tia Kabiru Mahama. I've also heard some people who say that perhaps the Speaker should have exercised a bit more restraint, especially when he attacks the Emmanuel Bedra Committee to look into the matter, to investigate and find out exactly what the cause of the matter is so that the blame can be apportioned appropriately. So you cannot in one breath be setting up a committee to look into the matter because you want to unravel exactly what happened. But in another breath, you're asking some people to go home and stay at home for 2 weeks. Something doesn't add up, and that it should have been either or. You're either suspending people and not be interested in investigating because the footages are clear. You know exactly what happened. You watch the video. You know who is responsible for what. I don't know where you stand on this, whether those who are making that argument are making some sense, or you think that what the Speaker did, even if he didn't have any sound legal basis, was right. I mean, putting the law aside, I mean, commonsensically, whether he thought it was a good thing to do.
My brother, I've had the privilege of working in the civil service and also working in the public service. The practice of suspending persons before investigations commence is normal in the public service and the civil service. An allegation is made against you, and that's why you have the principle of interdiction. What is interdiction? And so on. So you are suspended, the investigation is carried out. If you're exonerated, you come back to work, and in some cases, adequate compensation is made, and so on, in some cases as well. So that's normal public service, civil service practice.
Right.
And even in government, there have been numerous occasions where people have been taken out of their jobs because they're being investigated. So many, numerous. When it comes to even criminal investigations, there are moments when the investigating authorities actually decide, to take persons out of their privileged positions because it is assumed that if they continue to be at post, they may influence the course of the investigations as well. So these are normal practices.
Right.
Normal practices which are applicable everywhere. I don't see this hula baloo over nothing.
Well, I mean, the same memorandum that you're talking about, there's a portion of it, and I was actually looking for it because I was reading it yesterday, where the minority leader himself, who's also the ranking member of the appointment and the confirmation committee, raises, of course, procedural issues and actually cites a portion of the standing orders that clearly spells out what the Speaker is supposed to do when there's such a problem or such a problem arises, and that he didn't follow that, and that's why he said procedurally the Speaker erred. But I don't want to bore you with the legalities and so on. I'm going to pick Dr. Kabiru's.
I think we can discuss. We can discuss. Everything.
Right, that's fine. That's fine.
We can discuss
that's
everything.
Fine. Because I wanted that portion is actually contained in that memorandum where he cites it. He gives more than 3 different. So he said the standing orders of Parliament provide clear and unambiguous procedures for disciplining members. And he cites orders 33, 129, and 130 specifically. And he states, and it talks about what you're supposed to do. You have it.
And that's his interpretation.
Okay.
There are others who disagree. And I think that must be made clear. It must be made clear that the minority leader is not the Supreme Court. And, you know, the minority leader certainly is not God. You understand? So this is his interpretation, and others are entitled to disagree with that interpretation. For me, unless you underestimate, you know, the gravity of what happened on that night, respect for Parliament had ebbed to the lowest possible level. The population was angered, and so something needed to be done immediately in order to assuage, you know, the feelings of people and so on. And that is repeated in the very second paragraph of the very memo referred to by the minority leader himself. You understand? So here is the Speaker of Parliament confronted with this situation, and he has to act. You understand? In order to restore some measure of respect for the institution of Parliament. And that's what he did.
Okay.
Now, those decisions were reversed based on discussions which apparently had taken place between the minority and the majority, and perhaps involving the Speaker. So they have been reversed. I mean, what's the point? You understand? Look, I don't want a situation in which we all contribute to taking actions which undermine the credibility and respect of Parliament. As if you do that, you undermine the very democratic system that we are operating.
Yeah, because Parliament is our democracy.
Parliament is at the base of
the democracy, yeah.
So if you undermine Parliament, what is left? If you undermine Parliament, what is left?
Yeah.
And I think that we ought to be exceedingly careful.
Okay.
There's something which is very interesting, and you refer to statements which were made by the minority leader.
Yes.
The first statement which was made by the minority leader, referring to these processes and laws and standing order and so on, did not even mention the member of Parliament of the majority side who had also been suspended. He spoke about 3.
Yes.
How is that possible?
Look, you decided to don black yesterday in Parliament. What was that for? I mean, didn't you know that your leader at the time was having a discussion with the Speaker of Parliament in order for the suspension to be lifted? You didn't have any clue such a thing was happening. Probably if you did, you wouldn't have decided to don your black attire as we saw in Parliament yesterday, or it really wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, so let me join the multitude. Let me join the Ghanaian people and stand on the same platform again to also again apologize to the good people of Ghana for the unfortunate spectacle that they witnessed on Thursday evening or night. It was unfortunate. Honorable members of Parliament mustn't be seen in that dishonorable manner. We should not be setting bad example for people, young people, to, as it were, learn from those bad examples. And we all join unanimously in condemning that act, and that it could have been avoided if we had exercised a bit of restraint. That said, we need to correct some few misrepresentation of what had happened. And I'm just happy that some people allege that my senior brother and friend, Roxanne Echet, the Fiamako, had his ball squeezed. He had denied that. The author or the person that story is attributed to has also denied that.
Oh, because he said he didn't say that.
I was even the first person. When I saw it, I sent it to our platform, Axel.
Okay, whether he said
that. Look, this has been misinterpreted. What I said was totally different from what I have been reported.
What did he say he said?
He says that, look, under the circumstances, people moving from chairs, anyone could have been attacked. People going under chairs, and I mean, it was a general statement. And someone just linked it to the fact that, I mean, Bizdidin and then Rowley saga, where it's reported that Bizdidin had reported that his boss was excused by former President Rowley. Yeah. But I mean, that is not true. I mean, the incident has also made people, without restraint, use certain invectives on members of Parliament. I mean, like I just said, my uncle Uncle Pratt calling, like schoolboys and all those sort of. And we have invited this upon ourselves, but much as we invite.
Doc, please. I'm not saying that what happened there looked like schoolboys because balls were squeezed.
Right. No, I agree. I agree. I get it.
The conduct we are seeing now on the screen.
Yeah. So I get that.
Portrays the people involved, members of parliament.
I agree.
Like little schoolboys in a dining hall.
Yes.
Fighting.
So what I'm saying is that the conduct.
Please. He is attributing something to
No. This is what I said.
Let
me hear.
Why does he apologize?
No. This is what I said.
Does he apologize?
I said that the conduct of the members of parliament is making people to then spew invectives on us.
Okay.
Like people describe them as schoolboys, not the squeezing or the so-called squeezing of balls. So I'm making it clear that the conduct has given people the opportunity to at least say certain things. I describe it in a manner they wouldn't have. Or they shouldn't have.
Okay,
that's the point I'm making. I'm not relating it to any of these.
Because it wasn't an attack.
It wasn't an attack. It wasn't an attack.
It's like they blamed themselves for giving the public.
You misunderstood. I'm not saying that it's an attack.
Okay.
I'm saying that something is being attributed to me,
yes,
which I haven't said.
Okay.
And I have a right to do that.
And that wasn't what actually I said. So I've just clarified
so that please go ahead.
So that is it. And one would seem that even if members of parliament were wrong, we condemn the wrong. We condemn it. And just like the respect that we are expected to exude, that respect is equally expected from the general public to accord, not the personality, but the institution of parliament, that respect that when we are even trying to condemn that act, we are a bit minded that we don't, leaders are always ridicule and all those things, but we don't subject the same institution to much more ridicule. The role of the speaker, or the 20 of our standard, or the specified clearly, he has his constitutional backing from Article 95, the head of the institution of Parliament. He is expected to protect the honor and dignity of Parliament. Whatever he does, he is supposed to act impartially and moderate the affairs of the House to its logical conclusion, ensuring that we fulfill Article 93 of the 1992 Constitution, i.e. the legislative power, the right to make laws and to have oversight and to make sure that we put in regulations to govern our country. That is the work of the Speaker. If the institution of Parliament is brought into disrepute, if someone casts a slur or there is a dent, there's a scar, that is going to be left on the conscience of the institution of Parliament. The Speaker has the moral right, he has the legal right to come to aid to prevent that or to take remedial measures to forestall any future occurrences of same. What the Speaker did was in that spirit and putting the action within that whole spectrum, within that context. You say that the Speaker was acting with the greatest of respect, with the I'm careful with the word I'm going to use, but he was acting out of good faith.
Okay.
That whole action by the Speaker trying to suspend people, trying to bring the respect, trying to listen to what the Ghanaian people feel about it, he was acting in good faith. But in the exercise of good faith, the Speaker had overstepped his boundaries. And we need to get that clear, that as much as we commend the Speaker's decision to make sure that he brings back the honor and dignity, and that parliamentarians are expected to Ghanaians hold parliamentarians in high esteem, and we have to replicate that. With the Speaker not seeing that, is bound to, it's a source of concern. But in the exercise of that nature, you exercise in good faith, he had overstepped. Because come to think of it, that the member of parliament for Wale Wale, the people have elected, goes to parliament, for one reason or other, I get myself in dishonorable conduct. the Speaker decided to say that, look, you are being expelled from Parliament. You are basically making nonsense of the mandate the people had given you, and the Speaker has the right to then determine who becomes Member of Parliament or not, depending on your conduct. Because a member can be expelled from the House based on our standing order, but there are processes. And that's why one would have expected that the Speaker, after setting up the committee, would have at least exercised restraint, allowed the committee to carry out his work, and then the recommendation of the committee is going to be decided. Even the decision of who to go out is not by the Speaker, it's by Parliament. They say the House will decide. So that debate in the House would have to necessarily or naturally come on. Again, you don't exert punishment that is far in excess of even what your laws have stated. So even in your anger, if you were exerting punishment, make sure that it is not in excess of what your statute or your rule says. So if your rule under Order 129 speaks about dishonorable conduct, and Order 130 tells you for the first time offense, how many days you should be suspended. Second time, how many days you should be suspended. The Speaker goes to give people 2 weeks. That is far in excess of what the rule says. So, putting that together, one would not understand. And you come to talk of Afenyo-Markin. Look, Afenyo-Markin tried to reach out to the majority. Let's handle this thing as a group. You had discussion with Honorable Ayerga. He tried his possible best. But he's not the spokesperson for the majority. So when you see Afenyo-Markin speaking about the minority members who were involved, it is not because he thinks that the rise of Roxanne Daffy-Amakpo, need not be pursued. His rise were equally important, but he cannot speak for a man who has not given you the power of attorney to speak for him. So that's the only reason why you don't see in the statement talking about Daffy-Amakpo. Probably they were okay with the sanction. Okay. The minority members of Parliament weren't okay with the sanction. So his statement was not to the fact that he was concerned only about the minority, but he had made he has extended the olive branch to them. But they were not ready to join in that crusade, probably because, they feel like what was done was proper. So I think that at the end of the day, the leadership engaged, and I'll come back to why we're clerk in black. The leadership engaged. They met up with the Speaker. The Speaker said, well, this is what I think my understanding of this I needed to do. Minority leader made it clear that, yes, what you have also done is in excess of the powers you so have. We can have our disagreement, but Parliament has a way of dealing with its own issues. First and foremost, the members involved will have to show remorse because that act was unintended. The members expressed their remorse, which was conveyed by the leader to Mr. Speaker. The Speaker had to also give us something, and that was why he lifted the suspension of the members. And you found something he said on the floor, which was rather unfortunate, that everyone is remorseful. If there's anyone who is not remorseful here, get up. You see, that comment, I'm sure it was on a lighter note. If he meant it, it's unfortunate because look, I did not do anything. I did not join in I was not even there. How do you expect me to say that, but that fact that some people have committed an act which is wrong, which you are punishing them, I should take the responsibility and be remorseful for it? And if I'm not remorseful for the punishment, as if the punishment was directed at all the whole membership of the minority. The punishment was not directed to the whole membership of the minority. It was in respect of some 4 people. To extend it, to say that whosoever is not remorseful, rise up. It's a threat. And whilst an institution is governed by laws, you don't expect that the Speaker would be, he's our father. He has been there. He's seen it all. We are just burdened. We are trying to form our teeth in the institution called Parliament. He's been there. But when some of these things are done it as if the institution of parliament is not governed by rules anymore. It's governed by strong men. And that is the only point of concern in this whole issue about the mediation and the outcome of that particular mediation. Look, deliberate disruption of parliamentary business shouldn't be allowed. But deliberate perpetuation of impunity by populous majority because they think so much that the Ghanaian people have given them that mandate should not also be tolerated. Because, as I said, oversight across all jurisdictions is done, especially so when we have a hybrid democracy, where the legislative arm of government found themselves serving in the executive. Oversight will have to be done by the minority. And when you slip, the Ghanaian people will not blame the majority members. In fact, cool heads and people with nationalistic or patriotic perspective will blame everyone. But people would blame the minority for allowing things go the way they go because they feel like you have to have an eagle eye, you have to be on the alert, you have to at all times be, your promptness level should be top notch, right? So when we push and the majority feel like they can railroad their way through this process, the only way is for us to say, well, Ghanaian people, you give the country to the NDC. Whatever happens to the country, you so decided. So we are watching, folding our hands and looking at them to do their work. That will also mean that impunity will be enhanced, illegality will continue, people will deliberately abuse the power, the mandate, the overwhelming mandate that people have given to them, and make the lives of Ghanaians miserable. And we have the responsibility of protecting, and the Speaker has the responsibility of protecting the minority members to do this. So, for instance, if you find us disagreeing, the only way is walk out. The other way is to vote. We all know that if you are going to vote on any matter, with the polarized nature of our democracy, with the bipolar, if you like, stance we have, there's no way the MPP minority or the minority so-called would carry the day in any business of the House. So what we can do is to run to the Supreme Court all the time. And you know what this means? The Supreme Court will now be doing the work of Parliament. The court will now be doing the work of, because every single matter will have to go and place an injunction, or we have to go for interpretation. That will stall the business of the House, and that will mean that Parliament is now being undertaken by the court, and court is now determining why, because we feel that the only way our rights and the rights of Ghanaian people could be protected is to go to the court.
But I mean, Dr. Kabiru, I mean, you felt very strongly about the stance that was taken by the Speaker of Parliament. In fact, you saying that his stance is not in line with established parliamentary practice over the years. You've also talked about the fact that it lacks procedural legitimacy. Now, you don't think that in order to forestall such a thing from happening again, right? Because I do not think that this is the last time we're going to see any such chaos unravel in Parliament. For as long as you're dealing with human beings, condemnable as it is. If you decide to go to the Supreme Court to see some kind of interpretation as to whether, or you invoke the original jurisdiction of the court, which is to interpret what the law says, and you go to court to say that, look, this is what the Speaker has done. We're here to ask you whether what the Speaker has done is right or wrong. But that's the rule of law. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I agree.
Yes, those who are raising issues about the fact that when you are quick to go to court, what essentially you're doing is that you're telling the court to run your affairs for you, when indeed Parliament is supposed to be masters of their own rule. Totally understandable. But when you find yourself in the situation, because I was just about to ask you, even before you made that comment, that when the Speaker decided to suspend the 4 MPs, what options were available to you? You know, because the first thing you did was you organized a presser and told the whole world that, look, what the Speaker had done was wrong, you were not happy. And then later you decided to author a 5-page, I think a 4 or 5-page memoranda to state specifically the laws backing the stance that you are taking. So I wanted to ask you that beyond that, assuming the Speaker had not decided to suspend the 4 MPs, what were the options that were going to be available to you? In as much as you are not somebody who was very excited about the idea of going to court.
Yeah, so first we clad in black and red because that was our first show of disapproval of the action of the speaker.
Right.
And counting on the mediation that was happening between the leadership and the speaker to bear the right fruit so that we can all enjoy that fruit of that negotiation or mediation. That was done, and we had the results. Or a consensus was arrived, or we had a consensus by the speaker and then the minority.
Yeah.
If that had failed, we would have triggered the option you stated.
Okay.
If that had failed, because you see, these are members of parliament involved, we would have triggered it, and that essentially would have been the route or the way, the pathway to ensuring that the right thing is done. But you don't want 1 month into our 9th parliament, you start on the note that you are already in call with your speaker. It's not a good thing to do. Even if you have to make compromises, you have to make that. So we don't have to put ourselves in a situation where we would have to have the speaker going to court to defend an action. The members of parliament will have to be in court to defend their suit and all those sort of things. So I think that we should not hope for the day. I've stated this elsewhere and I'll state it here. The work of the minority would come at a great discomfort to the majority. That was what happened in 2007. I mean, 2009, it happened. It happened in 2013. It happened in 2017. It happened in 2021 onwards. And it's happening in 2025. It's going to happen. But in that discomfort, my uncle has not even advertised in the midst of deliberation, a member of parliament will be suggesting that because we are being stubborn and they should cross to their side and come and beat us. The MP for Ashama, he had to be called to order by the majority leader. In the midst of, that was the 8th parliament. I don't want to talk about the 8th parliament. I have to talk about the 9th parliament because that is the parliament I am a member of. Yeah. Okay, so when those things happen, and I'm making a point, and someone from the other side thinks that because of our numbers, they can just say anything and that they can cross over and beat us, this will degenerate. This will lead to something that the Ghanaian people will not know the cause. They only see people throwing hands at each other. Yeah. So sometimes we have to be much more tolerant. With the majority, will have to understand that, look, by the calling, by the fact that we are in government, people will raise issues with, even if it's a needle in the haystack, they'll raise it. Okay? Make sure that you tolerate that dissent. Make sure that you advance your reason. Make sure that you don't railroad people because you think that, look at what happened when we left the veteran. They railroaded almost every single appointee. And it's not for nothing that the Constitution says that there must be prior approval of the members of parliament. And the prior approval, and I remember in the case of J.H. Mensah versus the Attorney General. Yes. Justice Atkins said that it's not a term of art. Of course, whatever parliament does is not cast on stone. However, the process demands that certain things would have been unearthed. And how you do it is not rocket science. It's not something that there's a strict jacket approach to doing that. So I would ask them to tolerate a bit more.
Except that when you got to the Greater Accra minister, the regional minister, you decided to demonstrate your own understanding of what prior approval was. You didn't even ask a question.
It was a great compromise the minority leader made, which some members of his caucus even have problem with him up to today, because he was asked to make that compromise because some people in government and in the majority had approached him.
Okay. We'll talk about that after the break. Uncle Sip, I'll come back to you. I beg you. I need to take a break quickly. Just a minute. I beg you. Just a minute. We'll take a short break. When we come back, Uncle Sip has some comment to make on this matter, and then we can move on to some other issues. This is Good Morning Ghana. Stay with us.
So, Andrew Asani Tano, Edin Simbi Etu Ega. Na ensema urano na okanise. Opeso tini ya kohe video na me to ho nne no. That is first video anima posting. But Nina Muno, that is urgent news. So may caption urgent news. NDC President John Mahama and NDC should hear this and act fast. That is the caption. Oko page in my womb. Abusia, dear air can say MPP for them the so-called mighty minority in parliament. Or more adopt strategy be. And do you know what? Strategy na nkofo we adopting no any say. Ombe make sure say parliamentary business will not go on successful. Nti de bi omo de kokwasan sa na afina kone wi na ndi sinya nya hwe. Na afanyo maake ne nkrofo akiri mu a the moment a omo sorry so omo be kasa on says speaker of parliament one MEC speaker of parliament one microphone at a time. Se kobasi omu na bi omu microphones no boma. In fact, ebeye pinche unti obi voice. Ti se mo wahihye omu cage manas omu hihye tuom no. So these MPP people, the MPP caucus led by Afenyo Kwame Namakinse no. Omu chirimu a we secret bia a babontin. They will all on their microphone. Immediately, NDC member of parliament gets up and suggest a very strong policy or a very strong and vibrant topic that will push this government and make it successful. No number I want the microphone. No more zan. That is nkomodidi no as akoye kayus bi as akoye verbal kayus we nye physical kayus verbally. That is omo de omo ano yen ntaze yen nyese o any demonstration bi obokoye na ndwa yen nyese pa. That is omo asem no omo sweeping under the carpet. Hey, and this for mo ya mamu ya ye nwa okuruma ya to abayi mo. Die nti a yɛmpɛ sɛ obiara bɛka story akyerɛ yɛ ɛne sɛ yɛahyɛ da ama mo super macro wɔnyɛ micro super macro majority kyerɛ sɛ yɛama mo overwhelming majority ebi nsi da ɛwɔ Ghana political history mu ebi nsi da esi den na moma MPP for edi sebi nyado about 80 MPs odi anye bia 88 or 90 MPs etimi be distract government business. NDC for media me kana makani bio se munim de ekwa se de awia boy no za nso ne nso mu na ebeye enti yesere mo empayimfo amuwa NDC mo Papa John Dramani Mahama peso ye adwuma na ogya dimpa edika NDC amanyuko no ne Ghana nyina. But it is as if say some key members in NDC are not ready to do it. And some of us, we won't allow you. Ultimately, adwuma na jato nako no bi mehyɛ ho. Na nti saa na moyɛ mo kokwasa ase yeye ase yenye ase yeye ase yenye ase yeye ase yenya. Some of us, we won't spare you because ya brepa and some people for move free power. Ya brepa and send this for mobile in power. So we want to allow you to, excuse my language, do whatever that you want. You better more. Speaker Alban Babin. With my son to phone them TT near my cosum, social media, so very near me. In fact, I can boldly say, 2/3 of NDC grassroots shall see a disappointing in you. They are having disappointment because of your recent declaration be a suspension be a suspended NPP. Nipa 3 MPs any NDC nipa baako. Emma and draw the ya osan echo withdraw you know. People are start asking questions. Say Babin Nakrano, or you who is he coward? Can he stand on pressure? These are some of the questions that people are asking, and Mega, I am here to what? To tender all those questions to everyone who is watching me because I am for the people. But the kaka, and in time, say, they won't be as if I comment to them. I am making snappy because me can't comment to be maybe no, na me time no, be call. Mr. Munyan snappy, opposite me can comment in a family program, I am snappy because every single comment be a baby and me person me kai. We can't comment be a, we can't every comment into here. The love emoji no minyan fan boss one and chess and minyan kai. But from one day kon minyan fan boss I hit me so commenting so negative to the extent say you fan love emoji muscle. I will be hypocrite because I dear me ye me de intimate. But apart from that, any concerns be our person raising for to comment section go. You be address issue no the amount because a platform when this in painful they know it's or minimum cause why yin yankofo bi no mo frɛ sometimes mystery mpanyinfo hwɛ NDC mpanyinfo bi no hwɛ omo how yesi bua party ne Ghana but me bua party o me bua Ghana into party betina so na wanye de wose ya. In fact me mega mini hwika other than to campaign against that political party. And he said the who in 2024 no Akufo-Addo me gigi na my campaign tiara no amabo mi amba no NDC for mo ye bia yebe gigi ma campaign tiara ne yahwe bo mi ne capabilities anase ye papa krede Japan ne yahwe omo capabilities because yanso ahonhoma nhwa ye hu de ekọ because NDC people are getting pissed off because of their act nkofo buifu eti esere mo ntoto niema yie Alban Babin speaker papa toto parliament ho yie emfa nkɔhye oyi first deputy speaker here second one emfa nkɔhye obi ansa one kasa tinam na ye adwuma no because this is the time we was about na mu ye adwuma de ma Ghana na Ghana efa no to opafira because of minor practice apansam this country a practice apansam until reset na mukan mumma yingunu in action, not verbally, orally talking and making a lot of promises. Mumma yingu yesidam. Inti sanity abusia iti die Uncle Kwesi Pride Junior eni suhini eko kan no eno no iti beso so document petum na like idwudi na wa share na foforo nyi biahwe. Me ma me chiba for United States of America yankopo shirap ma me bi UK yankopɔ nye ma me kese Royal BTV ko na ko subscribe to the channel no YouTube wa yankopɔ nhyira makraw bye bye.